Ladies and gentlemen, hospitals in the rural areas close because they no longer have the money to keep the hospitals open due to the fact that they have so few patients. The rural communities are struggling because most of the youth population they left to get jobs in more metropolitan and city locations. And so that leaves a lot of elderly people in rural communities that really need help, as far as their medical conditions are concerned. This came out in the Star Tribune. Death rise after rural hospitals close, University of Minnesota study finds. So this came out September 27th, 2019. Elderly patients are more likely to die when the nearest rural hospital closes and they have to travel further for treatment of time sensitive conditions such as heart attacks and strokes, according to a study by a new University of Minnesota health economists. The study is among the first nationally to link higher mortality rates with rural hospital closures, which have been happening with increasing frequency. And not only are they closing hospitals, some of them have hospitals that are open, but they're closing things like their maternity wards because so few people are having babies. So at least 113 rural U.S. hospitals have closed since 2010. Minnesota mostly escaped the trend. When I zoom in to look at patients with time sensitive health conditions, I find that they do worse when their nearest hospitals close, said Caitlin Carroll, who conducted the research for her doctorate at Harvard University. She was recruited to the Hughes School of Public Health this summer. Carroll also found that many small hospitals averted closure by getting federal critical access designation, which qualifies them for higher payments from the federal Medicare program. Those hospitals saw reductions in mortality. That is a significant finding for Minnesota, which has the fourth most critical access hospitals in the nation. However, those mortality reductions came at a steep cost. The research after also found that most rural hospitals probably could have stayed open without the higher payments. So it's possible that many lives could have been saved with considerably less federal hospital spending. Carroll research undercuts some theories, including the proposition that rural patients might do better after a hospital closes because they would have to travel further for higher quality care. That wasn't the case. The second closest hospital is another small facility that looks pretty much the same as the first closest on quality metrics, she said. So, Medicare recipients who lost their closest hospital and then needed inpatient treatment for time sensitive conditions, she compared them with patients in the same regions for whom the closed hospitals were only second closest. Deaths increased only among those who lost their closest hospitals, reflecting the fact that many were in their 80s and struggled to travel longer distances for medical care. Yeah, I can see that happening. And it becomes even more difficult for people that are bedridden and they need to travel to go to a hospital, so it's even more critical for them. Carroll then looked specifically at patients who had to travel an additional 15 miles or more for time sensitive care after their closest hospitals shut down. The death rate increased 10% in this group. So I would take it that this mostly those elderly people that are in these rural areas around the country, they would be the most impacted by those type of conditions, you know? So this is difficult. And like I said, I really believe in America, the first areas that are going to collapse in this country are going to be your rural areas. I don't know what they're going to do during this upcoming recession, you know? So it could be definitely a lot more hospitals closing, where the closest hospital could be so far out of their range, they would probably just die, even in the travel to a hospital of those kind of distances, when you really think about it. But I can see this happening. I really do. I did an article a few months ago on them bringing in foreign doctors from overseas to try to fill those openings in rural areas. Now, it has worked out in some areas, but not all across this country, because I don't know what they're going to do for all of these old people if these hospitals continue to close in those areas. Doesn't look like a good situation at all. But please tell me what you think, ladies and gentlemen. Please leave your comment and subscribe. Don't forget to hit on the notification bell, and I'll see you on the next video. Peace, family.